What if you would want to look at our data such that we don't want to see the entire data set, but we just want to see data for specific region? We want to sort of hide every other data, but just look at exposed data for a certain region alone. In this case, maybe the East region. What you need to do in that instance is to filter your data set. So Excel allows for a number of filtering options, one of which is I can come here, for example, if I want to see only data for the East region, I can come here to the region column, I click the drop down, and then if I come in here, I can click on select all to deselect everything. And once everything has been deselected, I select the East option and then I click on OK, and this now shows me data for East region alone. I can come in here, instead of the East, I want to see it for North. I click OK, it shows me data for just North alone. So this is exceptionally useful if you have a large data set and you want to narrow down the data for a particular item on the list. If you want to see for more than a region, maybe North and South, you can select more than one option and click OK, and this gives you the options for North and South. And in case you have a long list of items, for example, and you don't want to start scrolling because this list can get long easily, what you can do here is to use the search box and then you type in whatever you would want to see. And now as I have this East selected, I click on OK, and this shows me data for just East. Another way to filter is, this is if we want to filter on a text column. What if we want to filter on a numbers column, for example? I want to see every single row that has ID greater than 11 or greater than 10. So which means I want to see 11 to 20. You don't want to come here to the ID column and start checking the box one after the other, because what that will mean is you need to deselect all first, and then you come here, you start checking the box from 11, come here to 12, you check the box up to 20. You don't want to do that. In that wise, we have this number filters option. So if you come here to number filters, we can see that we have a number of options. You can specify that whatever will be seen, will be exposed, should be equal to a particular number or does not equal to a particular number. But for our case, we want to set it to be greater than 10. So which means from 11 upwards. So I can select the greater than option, and here I say that it should be greater than 10. I click on OK, and now you see that I just see 11 down to 20. So there are other options here that you can explore. Maybe you want to greater than or equal to, less than, just some of these options that we already are familiar with. You can set them here, and that the filter is applied on your data set based on the selection you make here. The same thing is applicable if you're working with dates. So if I clear filters from here, I come here to order date, you see that we have the date filter options, and then you can set it to use any of these filter options. Maybe you want to see for this year, for last year, for year to date, for the next quarter. You want to set it to be after a particular date or before a particular date. All of these options are here, so it's the same way to just explore them. Assuming now I've applied a filter here now, for example, so maybe I've said that this has to be greater than or equal to 11, so which should show us 11 to 20. How do I know that a filter has been applied on my data set? One thing you see here is there's a visual indicator, which is if you look at the rows here, the row numbers, we have 1, and immediately you jumped to 12. This tells you that something is hidden in between. So normally you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 before you get to 12. So it tells us that something is hidden. The other visual indication that we see here is that if you look at all of the drop down arrows that we have on all our columns, for the one on ID, it is slightly different from every other one in the sense that every other one just looks like a drop down arrow but the one on ID looks like a funnel. So this tells you that there's a filter on the funnels column. If I apply a filter on region to only show us the regions that are north, you see that region now has that same funnel, which is similar to what we see on ID, and both are different from the ones on every other column. But one thing I typically do whenever I have a data set like this, instead of having to look at the rows to see if the numbers are sequential or not, because the filter might actually be applied but it doesn't affect the set of rows that you see at first. So it starts to affect rows from maybe row 1000 or thereabout, depending on how the filter has been set. So one thing I do is to come here anywhere within the data here, and then I press Ctrl+Shift+L. Once you press Ctrl+Shift+L, it sort of clears the filter, and that's why you see that the drop down arrows that we see here, they are all gone. And once the drop down arrows are all gone, it returns or exposes the entire data set for you. So that's a quick trick to clear filters if whatever filter has been applied. And there are no filters. If you do Ctrl+Shift+L, it just toggles on or off the drop down icons that we see here.